Hey everyone, and welcome to 1.21 Gigawatts. I am Peter, that is Matt, and we talk about movies on this show, new movies specifically, and we are delighted to come this week and talk about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We will start spoiler-free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get any spoilers, somewhere in the middle, and yeah, we'll get into it. So, what's weird about this is that I feel like we don't often talk about animated movies on this show.
Nope, it's been a while. I'm trying to think of the last one we did. I think it might have been me and Connor for a Pixar movie.
Maybe,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
It's not. And I think what's weird about this is that this is the first. I mean, I say it's the first superhero animated movie, like in a big way. Technically, we did have Teen Titans go to the movies this year, but that wasn't a big release like this was.
No.
This is like, the getting #1 opening weekend. Teen Titans Go sort of released and made a little bit of money, and that was it. It went away.
Yeah. And I mean, it really knows its audience. It's, that was based on the TV show.
Yeah.
This is animated Spider-Man. This is like a first.
This is a first, yeah, in the sense that it's like a AAA, big budget animated movie that is opening #1, and it's also introducing a new character to the general public. Obviously we know who Miles Morales is, but this is like, no, we're doing this version of Spider-Man as the animated universe. Ever since the first trailer for this, I was kind of excited. I had no feelings one way or the other beforehand, because I didn't know. I thought, it might just be a little spin-off animated movie. It might not be that big a deal. But the first trailer, it looked really pretty. Like, the animation style was like, oh, that's visually interesting.
Yeah, because it's 3D rendering, but they do it in a style that makes it look like a comic book.
Yeah.
So there's, usually when you say animation's flat, it's not a compliment. But here, the way that they flattened it out and played with perspectives and shifted the camera around it, it's really a one-of-a-kind experience.
It was a new technique, because I know Sony are actually trying to patent the technique they used, so it's theirs. So if anyone else wants to use it, they have to pay them
right.
for the
That
license.
makes sense.
But it does look unique. It looks like unlike any other animated movie I've ever seen. It's got a very distinct style. So it's Miles Morales, who is the ultimate Spider-Man. He's the replacement Ultimate Spider-Man, because if you're unfamiliar with the comics, just a very simple brief history here. Marvel started the Ultimate Universe in the early 2000s, and Brian Michael Bendis wrote Ultimate Spider-Man, which went for like 160 issues or something like that.
Yeah.
And it ended with his death. Spider-Man in that universe died, and Miles was introduced just before that, and he gets his powers, and he witnesses this death, and he makes the choice to replace that world's Peter Parker, and he becomes the new Spider-Man. So that's just simple enough.
Yeah, so the Ultimate Universe was meant to like clean up, like at that point it was 50 years of continuity and whatnot. And then Bendis, so he takes that he makes Peter, and they kind of go through like the greatest hits of Spider-Man, but just in a contemporary time. So when he introduced Miles, it was really a huge game changer, because it was an original character in an imprint that was, trying to be contemporary, but not necessarily original.
Because it had been running for like 11 years when he did this.
Yeah.
And because, like you say, at the start of it, it was kind of like, okay, let's redo like all of Spider-Man, all of X-Men, but with, because the thing is, people, when they created Spider-Man, when Stan Lee, the late great Stan Lee, created Spider-Man and X-Men and everything else, they didn't know what they were going to add as the years went on. They just, everything kind of came about as new ideas as they came. The idea was that with the Ultimate Universe, they could, okay, we know that we're eventually going to do a Venom thing. We know we're eventually going to do this classic story, so we can seed them earlier. We can make it more, more thought out, more planned, more structured.
Yeah.
That's part of the appeal of the Ultimate Universe. But
Yeah, exactly.
I think by the time, though, you got to 11 years in, it was like, well, that's kind of running out of steam. I think by that point, like, the other Ultimate books weren't as good. I think Spider-Man remained the good one for longer.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Well, they fell into the mistake they were trying to solve, to where now you had 11 years worth of stories that were its own continuity, and you don't want to break that continuity, so you start, so you can't ultimize the Ultimate Universe, but that's exactly what Bendis did by the introduction of Miles.
In a way, kind of, yeah, because because I hear people talk about the Ultimates when it started, which was the Ultimate version of the Avengers. That was the Ultimates. You had the Ultimate X-Men. But I don't really hear people talk about the later Ultimate stuff or the later Ultimate X-Men. It's just it tends to have fizzled out after a while, after maybe the original creators left. Whereas, and to be fair, Bendis was the original Spider-Man Ultimate writer. It just lasted the whole thing.
Yeah, the artist. I'm drawing a blank on him.
Bagley.
Bagley, yeah, Mark Bagley. They worked on like 100 straight issues together, him and Bendis.
Hell of a run.
Like, yeah. Which at that time had only been rivaled by the early Spider-Man creators of Lee, and I think it was Ditko.
Yeah.
So, of that. So, it's pretty cool. I mean, Spider-Man was the spine of the Ultimate Universe. And what's cool here with this movie is if this gets, sequels or spin-offs, this will act as the spine to that,
We already have... I mean, I don't know if they're officially greenlit, but they're already talking about Into the Spider-Verse 2 and an all-female spin-off team movie with Spider-Gwen, Silk, and Spider-Woman.
Yeah.
So
see, and this is the stuff Sony should be doing with the Spider-Man property, is taking risks on stuff. Even Venom, which I still haven't seen, but instead of trying to tie it into everything that Marvel was doing, take risks and do something different. And this definitely qualifies for that.
yeah, it feels very unique. It is a movie about Miles, even though there is a Peter Parker who appears, there is a Spider-Gwen and everything else. It's a movie about Miles. It introduces him before he gets any powers. It introduces how it's his origin story essentially.
Yeah.
We get to meet his family. We get to meet just everything that's going on, and it's this crazy story about how reality's kind of breaking down, and these other versions of Spider characters are popping in from other worlds. And what's funny watching this, especially because Lord and Miller are behind this. They wrote this, or at least there are two of the writers on it.
Yeah.
Is that they were supposed to do a Flash movie at some point, right? And they got booted from it, or I don't know if they left because of other projects or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows what the complicated history is there. But I'm watching this movie and it's got like Peter Parker from another universe like helping train Miles, and I'm like, this is like Jane Barry. This could be a Flash movie, and like, oh, I hate you for not, I hate it for not happening.
Well, and that's kind of what I wish DC would do, because we're both big DC guys, and I would love an animated Flash movie that did something similar to this, or Superman. Something that plays with that style of the Timverse style.
To go with what they've done here, I feel like you'd have live action Barry, but this would be the Wally movie. Would be the animated one. I could see
that'd
that.
Be cool.
I could see that kind of thing. So I mean, we talked about the style. It's really pretty visuals. It's got this fluidity to it when swinging starts happening, when falling through the city starts happening. It works with slow motion, things like that. There's a lot of comic book narration boxes. Miles actually probably in the truest comic book adaptation ever to a point. We actually hear his thoughts as they're written on the boxes on the screen,
which is really cool. Because even in an animated movie that can come off as clunky, but the style here lent it to the narration boxes and thought bubbles and stuff.
Yeah, because there's a running sort of thematic thing where every time we meet a new Spider character, they tell their origin, and it is very reminiscent of like an issue number 1 where the character says, "Hey, my name is Hal Jordan. I'm Green Lantern of Sector 2814," and it explains briefly what the backstory is. That kind of happens with every Spider character throughout this movie,
and it's clean too, because they're all the same format, but there's just those little changes that because when Spider-Gwen gets introduced, she's been Spider-Woman for 2 years versus Peter B. Parker, who had been Spider-Man for 22 years. And, it's that element that shows just how different their worlds are, even though they're very similar.
Yeah, and the movie's full of Easter eggs. Every time it does this, the comic cover you see is based on a real comic cover, and the real creators of that book. So when the Miles one comes up, it says Bendis on the cover.
Yeah, Bendis and Persichetti.
You can see... like at one point, Miles' phone has a bunch of creators' names in there. Yep. There's a proper dedication in the credits to Stan Lee and Ditko at the end. So there's all these like things in there. There's a really weird Easter egg. There's an alternate version of Shaun of the Dead in Times Square. Did you not see this?
I did not. I saw the Shaun thing, but I didn't realize it was Shaun of the Dead. Like, I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, it says From Dusk Till Shaun, and it's it's Simon Pegg and Dick Frost. It's
oh my god, I want that movie so bad right now.
Yeah, so a lot of little Easter eggy things like that.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it yet, by all means, do stay to the end of the credits because there's a
Yes.
post sequence.
There is.
We'll
So
get
the
into.
lady at my theater, she was like, anytime a new superhero movie or a big movie comes out, she'll tell you if there's something to stay at the end. Well, we go through, and my friend's getting her ticket torn, and she goes, "Yeah, I don't know why it's there," um, which I'm glad she didn't tell that to me because I would have had attitude about that because the end credit thing was so funny, like I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll get to that in spoilers, but yeah. So
Yeah.
there's an end scene, and the movie works really well because we've talked a lot about the textual thing, the contextual things, and the dressing, the icing, and the cake, if you will. But the movie works. The movie's actually really good because it is just a good, solid story about Miles and about him accepting who he is and what he wants to be and committing to something and becoming this new Spider-Man. And it's about him having the confidence in himself, and it relates to how his father feels about him, and like, can he be his own thing, or does he have to be what everyone else tells him to be? It's
Yep.
those themes, it's those things that it's playing with, and it's
Yeah,
really
it's a lot more focused than I thought it was going to be because just based off of the trailers, I thought it was just going to be this like fun jaunt through the Spider-Verse. Like I didn't realize it was going to be a straight up Miles origin and how that affects him. And not that I was bothered by it, but it was awesome to see because again, I'm not that familiar with Miles. Like I know he's a character and he's been Spider-Man for a while, and they had the Spider-Man crossover in the comics and whatnot. But so to see it and see just how different it is from the Spider-Man origin that we all know, because we've gotten how many movies of it now.
yeah.
Like it was pretty cool.
I mean, that's one of the big differences, obviously, from the comics is that Peter from the real, Marvel universe did interact with Miles, but it happened after Miles had already been Spider-Man for a while.
Right.
It was like oh shit, now this is happening, and that was a story called Spider-Man.
Right.
But this is obviously dealing with a lot of other things. Now, I've not read everything Spider-Man in the last few years. I've not read Spider-Verse or Into the Spider-Verse, which was the big event. It was like all these spider characters interacting. I will get to it at some point.
Yep, me too.
But there's, I've read a fair bit of Miles, I've read a fair bit of Ultimate Spider-Man, and, it plays with these differences. And Miles is just really likable, and that's the first thing. He's a really likable character right from the start.
Yeah.
And he's already out of his element because his parents have shipped him off to not even shipped him off, it's the same city, but he's going to a private school where he has to stay at the school and not stay at home.
Yeah, which that caused a little confusion at first because the dad's like, "Oh, I'll see you on Friday," and I'm like, well, wait a minute, why? And then I realized, oh no, he stays at the school during the week and comes home for the weekend. So, but yeah, so he's already isolated and he feels like he doesn't belong at the school because there's a fun scene where he walks past his old school on his way to his new school. And, you see how, not necessarily popular, but how everybody knew him. It was like, hey, it's good to see you again.
Yeah, how comfortable he is, how at home he is with everyone there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then as soon as he gets to the other school, he's like itchy in his own skin that he just doesn't belong. And, it's a nice, there's a lot of showing and not telling in this.
It's the same as him becoming Spider-Man. Like, he gets these powers and it's like, now he's part of this inter or multiversal team of spider characters. And he's like, no, I'm not good enough for this. I don't belong with these people. And he's like, but that's kind of the point is that I think part of the movie's learn to adapt to like new situations you find yourself in, and it's really smart with how it plays with all those things, I think. And
it plays with that every time you get knocked down, Spider-Man gets right back up, and that's what makes him Spider-Man. And I love that reoccurring theme through every Spider-Man character, whether it was older aged Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen or even Peter Porker, like it's all the same. Yeah, Spider-Ham.
I think I like how that keeps coming back as well with all the characters. It's the idea of self-confidence, it's the idea of willpower and finding that strength within that he's kind of and not being in there. And there's a lot of humor, of course. It's very funny in places, a lot of jokes. Especially that joke they always do with Spider-Man when he first gets his powers, where his hand sticks to something. Obviously, we won't spoil what it is, but it sticks to something and it just leads to gold. Is all I'm saying.
Well, just, and every time he does it, like, yeah, because I've never seen that before with a spider character, like to the degree that it is here,
Mm,
where he's ripping off like glass on buildings and stuff because he doesn't know his strength still, because
yeah.
it's still all new and stuff.
Yeah,
It's really good.
a big part of the movie is him learning to get control of his powers because he doesn't
Hmm.
have any control on them for a
No,
lot of it. So that's a big thing. And there's an emotional heart to the movie. Of course, the action tends to be pretty cool.
yeah,
Um,
it's handled really well, like really
yeah.
well.
Voice acting. You got a lot of notable people in there. Nicolas Cage is Noir Spider
Spider-Man
Man.
Noir.
Yeah, Spider Man
God, that
Noir.
was so good. That dude got to be Superman and Spider-Man this year.
I know it's so weird. And
Like,
Joe, it's funny actually. I never heard of was it Penny Parker, the one with the mech?
yeah, the
I
anime.
didn't know about this character at all, and I ended up loving her in
Yeah,
this.
she's right up your alley,
Yeah,
you know. But yeah, and just like Jake Johnson as Spider-Man is something I never knew I wanted until the trailers. And I'm just gonna go out and say it. He's my favorite Spider-Man of all time now. Just I don't know if his grumpiness just speaks to me, but like Tom Holland's great, but the pudgy, grumpy Spider-Man just that's my Spider-Man.
Joe's funny about this is that because we see the Spider-Man of this like Miles' universe first, and I was
Yeah.
like, that doesn't sound like Jake Johnson. What's happening? And
No,
then I realized, oh, he's not. It's not Jake Johnson until we get the main
yeah.
world
And
Spider-Man, if you will.
and did you see who that was? I didn't realize it until I saw the credits.
I don't
That
think. Nah, who was it?
it was Chris Pine. Because I was
That's
like,
the
I
reason.
know that
Yeah.
voice because I did the same thing you did. I was like, that's not Jake Johnson. What the heck? And I was like, but I do know that voice. Is that? And I was like, it can't be Ryan Reynolds. We'd know if that was Ryan Reynolds, right? Because it had that
Yeah.
twinge to it. And then when we get to the credits and it was that universe, it was Chris Pine. I was like, oh my god, he's getting it on all sides.
Yeah.
Like he's in Wonder Woman and now he was in Spider Man.
Yeah, you've got Hailee Steinfeld, of course, as Gwen Stacy, and you have Mahershala Ali as Uncle Aaron, aka the Prowler, which is not. I don't think it's a big spoiler. Like he's a villain, and that was even hinted at in Homecoming, actually.
Yeah, that was
So
Donald Glover's character.
yeah.
I leaned over and told my wife, I go, you remember Childish Gambino in Homecoming?
Hmm.
That's him. So
And there's a reference actually in this movie to when he wore Spider-Man pajamas on Community.
oh
There's someone watching it at some point, and there's like a recreation of it
oh
in the movie.
nice.
So there's a reference to him dressing as Spider-Man, even though he played a character in Spider-Man: Homecoming, who's a different actor, obviously in this, playing the same
Right.
character. So there's a lot going on. A
And
lot going on.
yeah, and then the voice of Miles too was Shameik Moore, who the last time I saw him was in Dope, which is a movie I thoroughly enjoyed.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Joe, I didn't even realize I knew him from somewhere. I didn't
yeah,
recognize the name.
yeah. So
Um,
him just filling in, which I thought in Dope his character was kind of Miles-ish, because he was out of his element and didn't
yeah.
belong. He did, I think, a really good job as Miles. So yeah, the voice work all around was fantastic.
Yeah, it's really hard to complain. You got Liev Schreiber as well as Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin.
Which
Uh,
I didn't realize he was going to be the villain, and I didn't realize we are going to get a Tim Sale-esque version of him,
well, yeah,
where he takes up the whole screen.
he
Like
does. He really does.
it's so cool.
Joe, it's funny. Like I think what really works in this is that, and what makes it not, because this could have very easily been a mess. Like I was worried coming out of this that there was too many characters, there was too much stuff going
Uh-huh.
on. It never for a second thinks that it has to explain who the villains are. It's like no,
No,
Kingpin and Doc Ock, right? It was just we have
no,
these two characters. You know enough about who these characters are. We don't have to explain them. We don't have to explain
no.
the origins of either character. They just exist, and that's
Well,
fine.
well, even because we saw this and there was a family with like three kids and like
Mm,
the youngest was like 3 and the oldest was probably 9, and they're probably familiar enough with Spider-Man, but I don't think they know who Kingpin is yet
mm.
but they would talk and we would hear them, but it was like excited, so it didn't annoy me. But like the way that they handle Kingpin is a 3-year-old can automatically know, well, that's the bad guy. Like it doesn't have to matter like
Oh yeah,
who this
sure.
is. And I feel sometimes that the newer comic book movies go out of their way for fan servicey stuff, and I never felt like Spider-Verse really did that. Like if fan service stuff happened, it was just part of the story.
Oh
You
yeah.
know?
So yeah, so you got Kingpin, who's huge, and I was just wondering. I was sort of pausing to think there for a second because
Yeah.
don't Marvel own the rights to Kingpin? Did they like give them permission to use him?
I think it might be they because they never call him Kingpin. It's just Fisk. So it
That's
might be one of
true,
those
yeah.
things that you can use him, but you can't use the Kingpin name, which
Because
shows that they're playing nice because of the Spider-Man,
because
the
Fox
relationship they have.
because Fox had them when they had Daredevil because it
Yeah,
was like because the Spider-Man movies can't use Kingpin because Fox has them, and then obviously Daredevil went back to Marvel, so I'm like, wait a
yeah,
minute, and I'm just wondering if this is like a knock-on effect of the other deal where Marvel were
yeah,
playing nice and said, hey, for the animated movie you can use Kingpin or
yeah,
whatever, but maybe not, maybe you're right,
yeah.
maybe it's
But
just a
unless I'm wrong, and people want to let me know, I don't remember them ever calling him Kingpin. It was just Fisk. So, um,
you could be
so yeah.
right.
But I like seeing him. I like seeing this version of Ock. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was cool. That was something I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
So this movie does a lot. Like not that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, but I am familiar enough from the movies and base comic knowledge that this had some nice surprises in it. So and I can't say that with too much comic movies anymore.
No, it does. It does. It's one of those things where going in, I wasn't sure what to expect. Obviously, I was expecting good things because the reviews were off the charts before I went to
Yeah.
see it. But it's kind of one of the things that I like about Endgame coming up is that it's the first Marvel movie since like Phase One where I don't feel like I know exactly what it is going in. Because
Yeah.
because once you get used to the Marvel formula, it was kind of like okay, I can always even with a new character, I'm like okay, I can kind of see what Captain Marvel's going to
Cool.
be. I can kind of get what their
Black
next
Panther.
yeah, Black Panther's Thor's going to
Yeah.
be. And there's not to say there's no surprises, but
No.
they're
Not
similar enough that I can kind of get a feel for them.
No, yeah, not on this level. Like, I feel like the last time I was a surprise was Homecoming because of how,
Hmm.
I don't want to say against the grain, but how it didn't do stuff I was expecting. Like,
Yeah,
I was
no,
like, oh, it's gonna be a Spider-Man movie.
Homecoming was
Um,
wonderfully reserved, and I was
yeah,
pleasantly surprised by Homecoming. And I think it's funny that Spider-Man's had two great movies in 2 years now. Uh, you know,
ridiculous.
I know it's here we are.
Like,
Spider-Man's getting all the
and
love.
like, I have a lot of friends that are huge Spider-Man fans, and that's like their thing. And like, not that I didn't understand it, but this movie did a whole thing. I was like, okay, this is why he's on Mount Rushmore, not just because he was an early creator of Stan Lee, but you can do so many other things with him. Like, and we don't see that because we've only really gotten origin movies that kind of just rehash things. So Homecoming and then this
Mm.
kind of did away with that and showed us like, oh no, Spider-Man can do so much more on the big screen.
Yeah, yeah, and it pokes fun at the old movies. There's references in there. I won't spoil what they are, but there's
Yeah.
references early on to the old movies, and there's references to all sorts of things. Uh, so no, I think we'll give the spoiler warning just so we can talk more
All right.
freely about everything plot wise. So full spoilers from this point on for Into the Spider Verse. You have been
Mhm.
warned. Uh, so so let's just get it out of the way. The start of the movie, there's like recreations of scenes from the old Spider-Man movies,
Which I loved.
and it gets to the dancing from 3 and says, "We don't talk about this ever."
Oh, so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So that's all. Then I was like, well, okay, so he's the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. So this is I'm trying to fit it into
Well, no,
continuity,
he's not really.
right?
He's not really.
No, no, no. And then you get to the scene with the origin of the older Spider-Man, Peter B.
Mm.
Parker, and you're like, oh well, he's been Spider-Man for 22 years. He's our Spider-Man. And then I just stopped. I was like, no, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah,
stop. It's not going to be clean.
they're only
But
referencing those movies because lots of people have seen them. It's not because they're trying to say
right,
this is the actual future version of that
right.
Spider-Man. Yeah,
But I will tell you, since now we are in spoiler moment, like
yeah.
Stan Lee died, what 2 months ago. Yeah, it's been a little bit now, and it really didn't affect me. But the scene here where Miles Universe Spider-Man dies, the
Mm.
younger of the version, the Chris Pine, and just like the public outpouring for Spider-Man, right? And then we get the Stan Lee cameo where he talks about how Spider-Man was his best friend. Like I lost it. My wife leaned over to me and was like, "Are you okay?" And it was just all these emotions coming to the forward, and like how much comic books are ingrained in my life. Like it was only going to be a matter of time before something like that happened with Stan and Spider-Man, and it hit. And I feel like that upped the movie that much more. You
Yeah,
know?
no, it was a great cameo. It's a really it's a little because it's about someone dying, because it's about Spider-Man dying.
Hmm.
It oddly feels like fitting that this is the one that we get after he's passed away. Like it
Yeah.
feels like oddly tied to it in a bizarre.
Like,
No, it's not the last
yeah,
one because we know he's done one for Avengers, but
right. But like, if Stan's still kicking when this comes out, I feel like it's still a nice moment,
yeah,
but it doesn't have the impact to me that this one did. And just that whole moment, because it's about Miles, like he feels guilty for Spider-Man dying and he wants to try to live up and be Spider-Man, and walk in those shoes. So he goes to buy the costume.
yeah, because
Uh,
it's a shitty little kid's costume that just looks like
yeah,
garbage. And obviously, the big thing in this movie is that he actually witnesses Spider-Man die. He
yeah,
could intervene, but he's too scared to.
right.
Because
I mean, he just has his powers. Like
yeah.
it's like maybe been 36 hours, and yeah, but and that scene too. What the animation does with Spider-Man and how fluid it is. Like usually, to me, Pixar is always the gold standard when it comes to animation technology.
Mm.
This is giving Pixar a run for their money. I feel like Pixar's on their laurels a little bit with this because the stuff that Spider-Man does, and you never get lost or disoriented. Like it's really something.
Oh, it's great. See when Gwen Stacy, or sorry, Spider Gwen
Yeah,
proper, like
Gwanda.
Gwanda, yes. We meet her on the school obviously, but when she first shows up in costume in the trees and like
Yeah,
Peter and Miles are swinging because they've just stolen the
yeah.
computer, and it's all very funny. Like Miles is trying to go invisible and it's not working, or they did work for a little bit.
When he goes, I'm just gonna take because he can't get the. They need to
Passwords.
get into the computer to
Yeah.
get to get to form this device to stop the multiverse generator, and the computer's desktop's just all over the place. And he can't figure it out, so he just is like, I'm just taking the whole thing, and that still makes me laugh. Like it's been a couple, it's been like a day since I've seen it, but the comedy's solid.
Nah, it's good. It's good.
But you were saying about Gwen, like
Yeah,
when she
like
shows up.
yeah, because when she shows up, we get the like the first origin that's not for a Peter, right? Because Miles doesn't come till
Right.
the end because they saved that until he's actually Spider-Man, and
Oh,
that's the ending of
so
the
good.
movie.
Yeah.
And we get her version of the origin, which is a bit different. But during that scene, though, there's like three spider people swinging around in trees and shit, and it
Yeah.
never gets confusing. It always makes sense.
Nope.
You know where things are. It just looks good. And
Yep.
and that goes forward. We meet the others because we end up with a spider cave under Aunt May's house, and she's like, "Yeah, you're not the first one who came here." And that's when we meet, Spider-Man Noir, Penny, and Porker,
Uh-huh.
and we see all the suits. There's cameos, but the video game suits in one of the cases.
Yeah.
And that game just
Yeah.
came out a couple months ago, so they thought about this in advance. They
Uh-huh. This definitely made me want to play that game. Like I'm putting together finances to get a PlayStation so I can play the Spider-Man game because after watching this and the web slinging and the motion, I want to do that myself. So,
I've been telling you the PS4 for God of War and Uncharted for years at this point.
yeah,
So
I know.
So now you've got 4 Uncharted games, God of War, and Spider-Man to play, Matt.
Yeah.
They're ticking up.
I know. I'm working on it. It's I'm working on it. But
Cool.
also Aunt May essentially being Alfred,
Yeah, that was kind of
like
funny.
I loved it. Like it definitely felt Lord and Miller bringing their comedy because that's the most Lego movie it felt to me.
Mm.
Was when we get to the spider cave and like the spider buggies there from the old '70s show, and there's all these little Easter eggs. But like Aunt May's kind of a badass too, and like I
Yeah.
was like, this is super different and cool.
It's funny actually because the one thing from reading Miles's comic stuff up until a point,
Hmm.
the one thing I remember that kind of in a weird way is still true here is the idea that she actually in the comic because Miles is actually operating as Spider-Man without web slingers for a while.
Okay.
He's just doing his invisibility, his shocker move, and jumping
Hmm.
around and whatnot. And Aunt May and Gwen and Mary Jane actually like give him web shooters that of Peter who died.
Oh wow.
So they basically christen him as like you're approved as the new Spider-Man, and it's a really sweet moment. Now this was different because she's more like Alfred who's building all this shit, but
Right.
but there was some truth in there. There was some truth to it where I was like, oh, that was he did kind of get them from her in the comics.
That's really cool. I like that a lot because I figured he'd have to get them, and there'd be like a bequeathing from a Spider-Man, like these are yours now. So, but I didn't figure it was gonna come from May.
Yeah.
Like, so that was super cool, and that whole sequence, just when we get Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir, and he's talking how he's a private detective who punches Nazis in his spare time. I was like, well, now I got to read Spider-Man Noir too. Like, this is just adding a checklist. It's like, I need to buy a PlayStation. I need to buy the Miles run. I need to get Spider-Man Noir. Like, this movie's going to cost me more money.
Yeah, and Ultimate Spider-Man, even just going back to the Peter stuff, it's well worth going through that.
Yeah, I've read a couple trades of that. I think I got up to 3 because I read the Goblin stuff.
Yeah.
So, so that's the first 2 trades I want to say, and I think I read one after that. So, I'll eventually get to it all. Like, it's a blind spot that I'll resolve. But yeah, and this older Peter Parker, by Jake Johnson, he has some of my favorite moments in the entire movie when he meets Mary Jane at the there's a gala at the end that they have to break into, and they're all wearing bow ties because it's for Spider-Man, and the servers are wearing masks and whatnot.
Yeah, so all the waiters are all wearing Spider-Man masks.
Yeah, so that's how they sneak in, and he stops to talk to Mary Jane, and Mary Jane doesn't realize this is actually a Peter.
Yeah.
She thinks it's just a waiter talking about, like, she wants more bread.
Yeah.
And he turns it into all the things that he's done wrong, and he's going to get her that bread.
Because it's worth mentioning on his Earth, which makes it feel more like the traditional Spider-Man universe, is like things have screwed up with Mary. They've kind of broken up again. Whereas Peter and Mary were quite close on the Ultimate Universe. And that kind of tracks with the Ultimate Comics as well to a point, is that their relationship is one of the best parts, I think, of that run.
Okay.
And so it was really sweet at the end that when he goes back to the main world, his universe, he goes to Mary Jane to make it work. He's like, nah, I'm going to go and try this again, which was nice. Because one of the things that I think is really smart about this is that obviously they basically leave Miles behind because he can't be trusted to control his powers. And then he has his own sort of like soul searching and like sort of realization that he can do this on his own. And he shows up invisible and helps them fight. But what I really like, this is the best touch, I think, in terms of like making it his movie. It's already his movie anyway. It's really focused on him. But in the final fight, the fight continues once everyone else has left and went back home. He's left on his own to fight Kingpin, and I think that's really smart because he has to do this on his own. He can't just rely on them. So
he has to be his own Spider. Yeah, and that's what I like. And then his dad too. His dad's kind of the J. Jonah Jameson character that's like, he's down on Spider-Man because he's a cop and Spider-Man's a vigilante and he needs to let us do our job. And I like that. But at the end, he's like, he's suspicious of Spider-Man, but he's watching Kingpin just take it to him. And he doesn't know this is his son that is Spider-Man. And he's just like, get up, Spider-Man. And it gives me goosebumps. Just like, it's that scene in Spider-Man 2 on the train, just turned down, and it just gets the job done. So, hoo-wee.
Yeah. Miles does have a roommate who, I'm like, is this Genki? And he never has a line.
Yeah.
It's not until the end of the movie where it's clear that because he caught him with all the other Spider characters that this kid is in on it. So, I'm assuming it is Genki. The weird thing is, though, is they kind of robbed him for Homecoming for Peter. He's called Ned. He's another character, but they gave him Genki's personality and image.
Okay.
So, be curious to see how they handle that in Spider-Verse too. But
Ned is so much Genki that Mario, our friend, still calls him Genki. Like, he refuses to call him Ned. But yeah, if we get another one and they can kind of do it, but not the same, I feel that would work in this universe.
Yeah. I'd say that I would expect that a sequel would, because they've already said that it'll have Spider-Gwen in there for their relationship because they're going to do the romance stuff, right?
Ooh, okay.
But I would expect maybe she's the only one that we get back, and then it's more focused on just what is going on in Miles' universe. It's not about the multiverse breaking down again, kind of thing. I would think.
No, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of the multiverse breaking down, the glitch effect, where they set up the stakes like, these spider people have to go back to their universe because if they don't, they'll disintegrate because they're not meant to be here. But just that effect it's so cool. of them glitching out and whatnot. Like, again, it's something original.
Yeah. It's because and obviously we go through the whole thing where he realizes his uncle's the Prowler and he's about to kill him, and then he takes off his mask to show him that it's him, and he's like, "Wait, Miles," and
Oh,
he kind of lets himself be taken instead. He essentially sacrifices himself to save Miles,
yep.
and it's like, okay, so he redeemed himself in the end, and because
So
for a bit
you
you kind of get the
right.
sense that Miles' dad might actually think that Spider-Man killed his brother, because
Yeah.
he finds, like, he from behind he sees Spider-Man crouched at his body, and Miles is actually crying his eyes out that his uncle's dead.
Yeah.
But from his perspective, it looks like Spider-Man might have had something to do with his death. But by the end, he's kind of like willing to accept that that's probably not true.
So yeah. So in the comics, is that part of his origin too, or is that something they did for the movie?
I don't remember his uncle. I remember his uncle being around, but I don't
Okay.
remember his uncle dying. If anything,
Because
I remember that his uncle is still around as a villain for a while at least.
okay. Because I like that it played up on that we get Spider-Man losing his uncle, and they were close, and
Yeah,
like
because all the other Spider characters say, "Hey, for me it was my uncle. For me it was my best friend. For
right.
me it was they all have a someone who
Yeah.
died."
So this is his tragedy, and it hits like it got dusty uh,
Mm.
again in the theater. So
It's getting dusty in here. I'm not crying.
yeah.
I'm not crying. Don't be a fool. Anyway, so yeah, so the movie has a great pacing. It moves along very quick. It's over 2 hours long, and I don't think it feels that long. It goes in
No.
super quick. There's comedy all over the place. It's bright and poppy. Characters are likable. It uses a lot of music, like source music.
Yeah, I'm not much of a fan of the hip hop variety,
Hmm,
but when I got home, I downloaded the soundtrack, and it is fantastic. It is really well put together. Um, the song that Miles is listening to, it's called Sunflower.
that's at the start and the end. Yeah, the one
Yeah,
that's
the start and the end.
recurring.
It's so good. Like they did such a good job at that. But yeah, and it fits throughout because it does feel like something someone Miles's age would listen to. Like sometimes movie soundtracks can be a little bit clumsy because it's older people trying to figure out what kids listen
Yeah.
to. But here it felt authentic.
Do you know what's funny
So
about this is that it's set up so much. It's set up like this multiverse of Spider characters, but it kept us so focused that it's a really solid story on its own, and it doesn't feel
yeah.
overstuffed. And it's kind of this where it's like, well, Warner Brothers have no excuse for the DC movies at this point.
They don't, and that's what like. I'm not always trying to wedge in Superman, but like, if we can't have Henry Cavill as Superman anymore,
Hmm.
why can't we have an animated Superman movie where they can do all sorts of crazy stuff like this? Like
Just
Teen Titans was pretty good.
the reason why I say this though is because one of the things that always comes up is that, well, the DC movies feel more rushed because they try to jump straight to Justice League after like 2 movies, right?
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
this movie to me kind of proved that you probably could jump straight to it and make it good, but they didn't. It was just bad.
But that's it. It's all who's behind it. Like
Yeah.
for all their faults with Lord Miller on Han Solo, right? They weren't a fit for that. But almost anything else that I've seen that they've had a hand
Oh,
in.
hold on, wait a minute, wait a minute. We don't know they weren't a fit. All we know is that the studio didn't like what they did.
Well, I'm gonna say that it wasn't a fit
No,
for
because
what
from
what they
what it
wanted with
sounds
Star
like,
Wars.
what it sounds like, the studio hired comedy directors to make a movie, and then were surprised they got a comedy. That's what it sounded like to me.
Right, which isn't a fit for Star Wars, right? Like that's what I would say.
Maybe they should try something different for Star Wars. Maybe that'd be
Well,
would be a wise move.
maybe, and they didn't like what that different was, but my point still stands. Like Lord Miller, they're a different caliber of creative than what Warner's kind of been doing. Hopefully, James Wan can turn that around with Aquaman, because Aquaman, just from the trailers, seems like it's gonna be a blast. Um, even though the CG looks kind of dodgy,
I don't know.
but
I'm worried it's going to be messy. I'm seeing too many villains in those
yeah,
trailers. We're doing
yeah,
Aquaman next week, so look forward to
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But
So, but Shazam, like I got the trailer for Shazam, and that was well received by the audience I was with.
yeah,
So, Shazam feels like it's a little bit more Spider-Verse than it is, Man of Steel. So that's exciting.
That's good. This is good. All right, Spider-Verse is just, it's got delightful characters, but it keeps it focused to the main character and what his emotional journey is. To him being to him being strong, to him being self-fulfilling and knowing his own worth and knowing that he can do something, and it's getting through that struggle, and it makes it kind of a coming of age movie actually in a lot of ways, because it's about him kind of accepting who he is and realizing his own strength to fight back and like stand up for something, because as we said, whenever Spider-Man gets knocked down, he gets back up.
That's right.
So that's kind of it. It's got a really fun supporting cast. It's constantly funny. It constantly looks pretty. There's very little to complain about.
Yeah. I was sitting there watching and go, I don't know what I'm going to say on the review of negative thoughts, because I really didn't have any. Like, from the animation to the voice cast to the story to... It's so well done.
I'm trying to think of something.
Yeah?
I'm trying to think of something. Okay, I'll give you one. In the final fight, because they're in the big multiverse generator thing, right? Because the reason why this even exists is because Kingpin lost his wife and child and wants to find them from another universe. He wants to steal them from another universe, basically, because his wife and kids saw him beating up Spider-Man, so they ran out and got into an accident, and he's determined to find another wife and kid. The same wife and kid, just, from another universe.
From a different multiverse. Even though, like, we know that they couldn't stay here anyways, but he doesn't seem to care.
Yeah.
It's all about Kingpin. But
Maybe he doesn't know that, though. Maybe he's...
Well, maybe not.
Yeah. So, but as this fight's going on, the crazier it gets, there is a point where space outside of the little platform doesn't matter, because it just looks like there's tons of shit flying around everywhere. So I'll say that the geography of the final fight is the only time where I didn't really feel like I knew where they were in the context of the room, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's minor though. I'm just trying to I'm trying to nitpick for things just to critique it.
Well, too, and it's also like when they fire it up, there's this, things kind of pile up from other universes, and they kind of stay there.
Yeah.
And I felt like that thread kind of got lost, because they kind of made a big deal about it early on, and then they don't really touch on it again. But again, that's minor. I'm grasping at things.
Yeah, because it's a really crowd pleasing scene when Miles finally makes his own suit, which, while looks like his suit from the comics, is more makeshift because he just spray paints his symbol onto it. It's not like as welded, produced, if you will, and. He shows up in the final fight invisible, where he stops something from happening, and he's like, no, it's him, he's here, and everyone kind of realizes, because it's really sad when they have to leave, because Peter stays back to talk to him for a little bit, and there's a shot where it goes outside the window, and all of the other Spider characters are all like sticking around the window listening to this, and it's kind of heartbreaking. Like they're all feeling kind of sad for him because he can't help, and he feels kind of useless. But it's worth mentioning that it's after he has a sort of emotional pep talk from his dad, where his dad says, like, I don't really care what you do, I just want you to be the best you can be, because he talks to him through the door, and it's kind of sad and emotional, and it's the whole thing. And that cinematography is great too, because it ends on that shot where it looks like they're in the same room but just divided by like a comic panel. So like it's so good. Yeah, the storytelling's there, the emotion's there, it looks great, everything. Hard to fault. We're about to rate it, and I feel like there's very little to and I'm excited for the sequel and the spin-off. I think they could both be good. Keep Lord Miller on board somehow, and just
yes, please,
go from there, basically. But no, great stuff. So what are you rating it?
So it's like, do I knock off a half a point for things, or do I just give it the 10? Is it a 9.5 or is it a 10? And I think still, only a day away from it, I think it's a 10 right now. It could come down to a 9, over the next couple, or 9.5 at the end of the week. But as of right now, I think I'm giving it a 10.
I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay.
I don't give out 10s willy-nilly and without lots of thought and repeat viewings, alright?
Okay, so I got into it with Alden, a friend of mine.
Oh, God.
Over, and granted, he hasn't seen this yet, but he'll argue anything. Alden is that meme of, I will argue anything with anybody, right? And I told him this is, I think, the first superhero movie to challenge Dark Knight as my number one like favorite best comic book adaptation
Yeah.
in forever. So the fact like it's challenging Dark Knight, that's why I'm comfortable giving it a 10. And he's like, "Oh no, Lego Batman movie." I was like, "Get out of here with Lego Batman movie." Like, it was fine, but it's not this. Like, it's not even close. So
I've still not seen Lego Batman because I just,
yeah, it's fine. Just give it a check. You'll, as a Batman fan, you'll appreciate a lot of it.
I'll
And,
chuckle at some
like,
references, I'm sure, but
yeah, it's good, but Lego Batman felt more like Teen Titans Go than this to me. Like, it's fine.
And to be fair, I did enjoy Teen Titans Go to the movies.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed Lego Batman, but like when this is challenging Dark Knight, which I hold as like the crown jewel.
This has a lot of comedy, but it's not like a parody version of Spider-Man. It's taking Miles seriously. It's doing it.
This is Miles Morales' movie. Like, if you would have told me a couple years ago Miles Morales was going to have a movie and that was going to be animated, like, I'd been like, well, is it direct to Blu-ray? Like, is this one of those things? But no, this is a full-on movie. And, like, this is going to inform a lot of kids on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like, this might be their first introduction to Spider-Man.
People are going to grow up with this. This is like a whole generation of people are going to grow up with Miles and Peter being kind of side by side. There's no question of that.
No, so that's why I'm comfortable with that. Like, it is challenging, and like the movie that Dark Knight knocked off was Superman the movie. Like,
so Superman had a long reign.
Superman had a very long reign. And I love all the Marvel movies. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a lot that I love, but none of them I feel like are of that Nolan Dark Knight firing on all cylinders. And this was like it's weird.
Nah, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah, 9 out of 10 from me. It's hard to fault it. It's hard to call something and fault it in any way. So yeah, there you go. That's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So we should be getting more of these, doing quite well, and we'll be back next week with another comic movie. We'll be back with Aquaman, and hopefully Connor will be joining us because we're the three of us, of course, make up comics from the multiverse. We talk about DC Comics every week, so it makes sense that all three of us would be here for one of the movies. So yeah, so we'll be back from that. Of course, let us know what you think of Spider-Verse in the comments, like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can support us by doing that, of course, but also by going over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. You can support us over there for as little as $1 per month. One of the things that we just decided actually is that when we get to our best of the year awards and we do our top 10 movies and that kind of thing, which we're doing in February around the same time as the Oscars, because it gives us a couple of months to catch up in other movies that we've missed over the year. We're going to have a Patreon vote as well. Everyone at the $1 tier and up can send in their votes, and we'll announce the results along with ours. So that'll be fun. So that's something else you get to participate in. But otherwise, that is it. So get us on Twitter at @mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, I think that's us. So yeah, that has been Into the Spider-Verse. Thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we will see you next time.